Islam Makhachev is legitimately considered one of the modern legends of MMA, and his legacy is becoming much bigger than simply being a UFC champion. Islam Makhachev is a Russian mixed martial artist from Dagestan who became one of the most dominant fighters of his generation. He comes from the same Dagestani fighting environment that produced Khabib Nurmagomedov. Islam trained under Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov's system and developed the wrestling grappling discipline and tactical approach that became the foundation of his career. But an important distinction is this: Islam isn't simply the next Khabib. He has built his own legacy. The biggest reason Islam belongs in the legend conversation is his success at the highest level of MMA. He captured the UFC lightweight championship by defeating Charles Oliveira. That victory was especially significant because Oliveira was one of the most dangerous submission specialists in UFC history. Islam didn't just survive Oliveira's ground game. He submitted him that immediately established Islam as a legitimate championship-level fighter. Winning a UFC championship is extremely difficult. Defending it repeatedly is what separates champions from legends. Islam demonstrated an ability to repeatedly defeat elite-level opposition while maintaining his position at the top of one of MMA's deepest divisions. His style creates a particularly difficult problem for opponents. If they stand with him, he can strike. If they try to wrestle, he can grapple. If they go to the ground, he can control and submit them. That versatility is one of the biggest reasons his reputation has grown. Islam's greatest weapon is his grappling. His wrestling isn't simply about taking an opponent down. It's about what happens after the takedown. He can control an opponent against the cage, chain multiple takedown attempts together, maintain top position, control wrists and arms, pass guard, take the back attack submissions, threaten with ground and pound, force opponents to constantly defend. This creates enormous mental and physical pressure. An opponent may successfully defend one takedown, but Islam can immediately transition into another attack. That's what makes his grappling system so difficult to deal with. Earlier in his career, opponents could focus heavily on his wrestling, but Islam's striking developed significantly. His kicking game, timing, distance management, counter-striking, and ability to combine punches with takedowns made him much more dangerous. This is important because elite MMA fighters cannot simply specialize in one area. Islam became a fighter who could threaten opponents everywhere. That evolution is one of the strongest arguments for his greatness. One of Islam's most impressive qualities is his fight intelligence. He rarely fights recklessly. Instead, he studies what his opponent gives him and gradually takes control. His fights often demonstrate patience, position, pressure control, finish. He doesn't necessarily need to win every exchange. He wants to win the overall fight. That's a characteristic shared by many legendary fighters. Islam is also important because of what he represents. Dagestan has developed an extraordinary reputation in combat sports. The system associated with Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov emphasized wrestling, sambo, physical conditioning, discipline, teamwork, tactical intelligence, relentless pressure. Khabib became the most famous global representative of that system. Islam then demonstrated that the system could produce another dominant UFC champion. This helped make the Dagestani style one of the most recognized approaches in modern MMA. The relationship between Khabib and Islam is a major part of the story. Khabib became one of the greatest lightweight fighters ever, and Islam followed him into the UFC, but comparing them is fascinating. Khabib's style, relentless pressure chain, wrestling, crushing top control, and ground and pound. Islam's style, elite grappling combined with more developed striking submissions and technical versatility. So Islam has inherited part of the Dagestani philosophy while developing his own identity. The fight against Charles Oliveira was a defining moment. Oliveira entered the fight as a highly dangerous champion with an incredible submission record. Islam defeated him and captured the UFC lightweight title. That victory wasn't simply another win. It announced a new era had arrived at lightweight, and that is exactly the kind of victory that can define a fighter's legacy. Another huge chapter came when Islam faced Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski was considered one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world and moved up from featherweight to challenge Islam. Islam defeated him by knockout in their rematch. That was particularly impressive because Islam showed that he wasn't dependent exclusively on wrestling. He could finish an elite fighter with his striking. A legend isn't created only by a win-loss record. Legends change how people think about their sport.